Welcome back to the Fantasy Price Check. Today we're going to be talking about Calvin Ridley. Just to let you know what we're doing on the channel, we are looking at player ADPs and we are grading them based upon whether they are overpriced, underpriced, or fairly priced. Let's get into Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley is currently being drafted in the 4th round. His ADP is on the rise. When I originally did this analysis, he was being drafted with the 7th pick in the 4th round, and now he's up to the 3rd pick in the 4th round. He's currently being drafted as a wide receiver 17 right after Deebo Samuel and DJ Chark. And he's being drafted ahead of guys like Robert Woods, DK Metcalf, and Michael Gallup. In 2019, Calvin Ridley played in 13 games and had 93 targets, 63 receptions, 866 yards, and 7 touchdowns. Since he only played in 13 games, his 16-game pace would be 114 targets for 77 receptions, 1,065 yards, and 9 touchdowns. If you compare that to his rookie year, here are his rookie stats. 92 targets, 64 receptions, 821 yards, and 10 touchdowns. Last year, he was drafted as a wide receiver 22, and he finished as a wide receiver 23 despite missing 3 games. During the weeks he played, from weeks 1 to 14, Calvin Ridley was a wide receiver 10 in fantasy football. And Calvin Ridley has been remarkably solid in the red zone, producing 17 touchdowns in his first 2 seasons. One of the issues you had with Calvin Ridley last year was his consistency. He got off to a slow start and was also a bit of a boom-bust player. In 4 of his 14 games, he produced 3 or fewer fantasy points, but in 7 of his 14 games, he produced more than 10 points in standard leagues. I think some fantasy owners have a poor taste in their mouth based upon the 4 weeks that Ridley has disappeared on him. In week 3, he had 1 reception for 6 yards. In week 4, he had 3 receptions for 32 yards. In week 7, he had 4 receptions for 30 yards. And those are the games that stand out for me as being very poor games from Calvin Ridley. However, Calvin Ridley really got going down the stretch. Once you saw Austin Hooper miss time with an injury, and after Mohamed Sanu was traded, his targets shot up. Calvin Ridley saw an average of over 10 targets per game in the games that Austin Hooper missed. When Austin Hooper was in the lineup, Calvin Ridley was only averaging 6 targets per game. In Calvin Ridley's last 5 games, where Austin Hooper was absent in 3 of them, from weeks 10 to 14, Calvin Ridley was a wide receiver 4. I also took a look at Fantasy Outsiders' advanced metrics, such as DYAR, which simply measures a wide receiver's efficiency, and Calvin Ridley ranked 5th. That puts him right behind Michael Thomas, Chris Godwin, Amari Cooper, and Tyler Lockett. He also ranks 2nd in DVOA, which is efficiency per play, and that is right behind Chris Godwin. There's no doubt that Calvin Ridley benefits from Julio Jones lining up next to him and drawing number 1 coverage. He also stands to benefit from all the targets that are being vacated by Austin Hooper and Mohamed Sanu. The Falcons lead the NFL in vacated targets. They are losing 16 targets per game. And all those vacated targets are on the number 1 passing offense from last season. The Falcons ranked 2nd in the NFL in total plays and 1st in passing plays last year. They lead the league throwing the ball 67% of the time. Before I did this analysis, I actually had Calvin Ridley buried in my rankings because I remember him for the bust games that he had in the first few weeks of the season. However, after I did this analysis, he's a player that I've moved up my board. There are so many wide receivers that I like in the 4th round of drafts this year. I think I'm going to load up on running backs and then begin taking wide receivers in round 4 and round 5. The wide receivers that I really want to target in drafts this year are Calvin Ridley, Deebo Samuel, AJ Brown, and DJ Chark. What I love about Calvin Ridley is that he has top 10 upside. With all the vacated targets of the Falcons, he could easily reach 85 receptions, 1,200 receiving yards, and 10 touchdowns. Those are wide receiver 1 numbers. Calvin Ridley is underpriced. He offers wide receiver 1 upside without wide receiver 1 price. Guys, if you like what we're doing here on the channel, please click subscribe, like this video, and if you want to tell me what you think of Calvin Ridley, leave a comment below. Please also check out our website, fantasypricecheck.com, and check us out on Instagram and Twitter. I'll see you guys on the next one.